All I ask of you is that you solve a murder.
Whose?
Mine.
Hey everyone, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Tamor.
And we're here to tell you why we think Altered Carbon is one of Netflix's best originals. We both absolutely loved the show. And there's a lot to talk about, a lot to dissect. So this video is going to be chock full of spoilers. You've been warned right off the bat.
However, if you don't want to get spoiled, we also happen to have a video for that. Lucy has thought this through and put together impressions and reasons for why you need to check out Altered Carbon in a spoiler-free fashion. So head to GameSpot Universe's YouTube channel and you'll find that video there. And while you're there, subscribe, like, hit a bunch of like buttons everywhere, and it will boost our egos. And enjoy.
Yeah. We've also got a glossary of terms because Altered Carbon is some super hardcore, heavy sci-fi, and it throws a lot at you off the bat. So we've done a glossary of terms video if that's your kind of thing too. But come on, let's get started. This is why Altered Carbon is brilliant.
Can't say that.
I just did.
Wow.
We should probably say that for the purposes of this video, we are not going to be pitting the show against the book. They're actually very, very different, and we are making a separate video about the differences between the two. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to be judging the show on its own merits, just to kind of not blur those lines too much, I guess. But Tam, what was your main takeaway? What did you like about it?
I liked pretty much everything.
Hey.
I had very limited experience with Altered Carbon before this, and I went into it thinking it would be more Blade Runner than it actually is. It's very similar in aesthetics, but Blade Runner is a very thoughtful, kind of slow-paced examination of a series of themes. Episode 1 in this, shots fired.
Do you like themes?
Yeah, it's a great mixture of this world, characters, it's got action, it's got characters that connect with each other. I don't want to say romance because it's tricky with this series, but it gave me a lot to really, really enjoy. It wasn't a really long, really heady kind of sci-fi experience. It had a little bit of everything that I love about sci-fi all crammed into one place.
Yeah, I think what I enjoyed is that the world, as soon as you were in it, just everything felt like it had purpose and a reason and a link to everything else, and it just felt complete. And that was how, it's why I loved it so much, is because it felt it just felt like a world that had been properly realized, and I really, really enjoyed that.
It reminded me of, and this is a very obvious connection to draw sci-fi video games, it reminded me of playing Mass Effect for the first time.
Actually, yeah, when you go on Omega.
Yeah, when you just appear and it's a fully formed world and you're just enveloped by it, and you're the characters know about the world, they have that knowledge and they kind of navigate it. But you, as an outsider, you're kind of looking in and you're kind of just trying to figure pieces out and see how they all fit together. And the way that it's all created, and it feels, like you said, like it has a purpose and it all connects really well. There's ecosystem, there's ideas that bounce off each other. It was just so well done. It was from episode 1, I was like, I know I'm gonna love this. I know I'm gonna love this world. And so after watching the first episode, I bought the book. So I was like, I'm ready for this, I'm in.
No, the thing I really loved as well is that it is very heavy subject matter, as across its 10 episodes, it is very heavy, but it wasn't afraid to have moments of levity and kind of, for a show that is basically about the separation of humanity and what it means to be human, having these moments of levity really kind of made that stand out and kind of made it feel human, but it didn't do it in a Marvel way. So in Marvel, there's always a serious thing, and then the joke is really over-exaggerated, and it just had very nice moments. Yeah. And they were just in passing, they were very subtle, and I just really enjoyed that.
You're gonna need to interview Bancroft's associates, personal and business.
The kind of people in Mr. Bancroft's circle, it's out of the question.
So you go tell your boss you decided it's too socially awkward for me to save his life. I'm sure he'll understand.
It's the beauty of a character like Takeshi Kovacs, who's the main character. And he's a man out of time almost, but he kind of knows it, and he's willing to look at the absurdities of his surroundings and be like, that is dumb. And then you go, yeah, that is dumb. I agree.
Right.
And you laugh at him, and you laugh with him. So there's a lot of those moments, and I really, really enjoyed that they put those in.
So as a fan of, crime dramas, true crime, that kind of thing, I'm weird. The premise was immediately really attractive to me. So it's, You think it's just a simple murder case, but no, because of the technology, there's that cool element of the missing 48 hours. The whole, like, the bio-activated safe that only Bancroft and his wife can access. And you think it's going to be relatively simple, but the way that the show builds, not only builds in Kovacs' past, including, you know, his past in the Envoys and Quell and his sister, but also the past of his sleeve, of Riker's sleeve, and all of these webs, man. All of the webs came together.
So he comes into a world with a singular focus. Like, he's brought back, he doesn't quite like it, but he knows he's got an opportunity. So I need to solve the murder of this guy, and in return I get my freedom.
And bank.
Yeah, but what makes that interesting is he very quickly builds connections with the world, despite trying to ostracize himself and being a person and like a soldier almost that's been trained to do that. And then he also has the pasts of his own and his sleeves past coming, kind of like grounding him and tying him to so many things within that world. And then you get to explore all of that through him. It's such a great, like, it starts off as a whodunit, but then very quickly becomes really hardcore sci-fi that anyone can enjoy.
Yeah. And I mean, Kovacs himself as a character, you see him in 3 bodies, I believe. So you see him in William Lee, Joel Kinnaman, and the other, like, the younger version of him.
Yeah.
But the thing I loved about that character is he's just very... He's not like a blank slate of a character, which I really loved. You kind of felt like you knew him, you knew his purpose, what he needed to do, and he just got on with it. And as well, he was a badass.
Yeah.
But he was a badass who was also vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which I really, really liked. And I think he's a very, very good, strong shoulders to kind of carry the series on. Actually, you know, quite literally, those shoulders were incredible too.
Which way's the shower?
So what I really love about Kovacs as a character is what you said there.
Yeah.
Like they represent the 3 different versions of him, right? Like they have the kid version of him where he really cares about
Also, I
things.
guess he's 4.
Yeah, 4, I guess, yeah. So they have that version of him. They have him when he's SeaTac, where he's like this ruthless killer. And then they have him like as an envoy, where he's trained to kind of, you know, have these weird awarenesses of his surrounding, but he also is where he also discovered his heart again.
He has ideals.
He has ideals, exactly. And all 3 of those are kind of, they always feel like they're at odds with each other in throughout the series. And you see them kind of, as he has his roots in that world go deeper, you can see them more and more come to the forefront.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him interesting as a character to watch and also learn about his past, because you're filling in the color to him in the current, that future by looking at his past and also looking at the past of his sleeve. And it's just such a multifaceted character that I really, really like.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would have said is I wish there had been more of William Lee. I think he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
He's Wei Shen in Sleepy Dogs. He needs a pork bun. If you've played that game, he's a fantastic actor. And while Joel Kinnaman was incredible, and I think he did a really great job, I always want to see more William Lee.
Yeah, he's great.
But let's talk about the female lead. We
Ortega.
are both in love
I am
with Ortega.
Smitten with Ortega.
So she is, the thing is, I was watching and reading like a bunch of other reviews, and they were saying that Ortega felt very one-dimensional and that she's a very angry lady. She's always just mad about things, and that's her character.
This is not how normal people start the day.
But I kind of felt that that was the whole point of her,
Yeah.
because if you think about all the things that she's been through, she is working in a police department that's chronically underfunded, that is bought off by the rich, the very people who she is against. Like, she is not on board with Meths. She doesn't believe they should be above the law. And the fact that they have bought and paid for the Bay City Police Department is obviously this constant frustration for her. And she channels all that anger. She channels the anger about Riker. So in the show, he's been set up and he's been, you know, he's been put on ice. His stack has been put on ice wrongly, I guess. He's been framed.
And she's like, her contribution to that, it explores it over time. Although she had this relationship with Riker, like there's that scene further on in the series where they kind of come in to take Riker into custody, and she says, if
this is a mistake, you have nothing to...
If.
Yeah.
And that becomes a big point of, anger for Riker, who thought she would believe in him, but it was this moment. So she probably feels like she her last moments with this guy was not to believe him, and he was framed. And on top of that, like, she's now having to actually look at the man that she betrayed constantly, but never be able to actually tell him that she was sorry, or that she's figured out that there was something, she believes him, because he's not there. It's a different person in it. That's a different kind of torture for that character. And it's no surprise that she feels kind of bitter and angry, but also, like, she lives in a world where bitter, angry, like, cop is getting stuff done. Like,
if she shows weakness at work, then she would be like some of the characters that you see her come into contact with, like Dimitri and any of the other kind of gang members. If you show any kind of weakness, then you're done for.
Yeah, and she's one of the few people in that police station that's actually getting stuff done.
She's not corrupt.
Yeah, she's not corrupt. She's getting stuff done. She's solving, she's looking into things. She's actually driven by morals as well. Like, she's one of the few beacons of hope within that police force. So the fact that she's angry and kind of like consistently angry and like simmering the entire time, it kind of feeds into that driving force behind that character. You feel like that anger is pushing her forward through all the things that she's been through.
But it also feels very situational, because when she's at home with her mother and her family, especially like her nephews, you can see her soften.
Yeah.
And you can tell that the anger is placed purely upon the situation that she has to work in and she has to live in. But when she's at home and she can like actually just be herself, she just felt like she's ultimately a very sympathetic character who's dealing with it in the best way that she can.
It's incredibly likable, like even within the workplace where she's like, a driven person, and then at home where she's, despite having, disagreements with her family or her mother specifically on the ideologies of using stacks and religion and that kind of stuff, she's still very respectful and has fun with her mom, and she's respectful of her family to some degree. She does some interesting things.
Gets
now
high
and
with
then.
her abuela.
Who's
My
been
girl.
brought back from the dead temporarily. But that's like a moment of humanizing and a moment to connect with this character who otherwise does feel quite angry and one note. But the way I see it is that note makes every moment where it kind of where she does something different and hits a different tone even more poignant. Because you remember, this is a person who has been through a lot, and she is still human. The world is trying to grind her down, and she's gritting her teeth and fighting through. And that's what I love about her.
A bionic arm,
Yeah.
which was awesome.
When she gets that arm, I was like, you are number one now. You are the best. Because there's that moment where she first uses it and she's like,
You lied to me! What the f?
So, about the arm.
I'm unconscious for 10 minutes and you start replacing my body
It was
parts?
either replace the arm or lose the sleeve. You can use it to bash my face in if you want. Give you an Ortega family bulk deal.
Don't tempt me.
But let's talk a little bit about the Meths. So I just kind of want to say, like, James Purefoy.
great guy, love Meth.
My frame of reference for James Purefoy is in Resident Evil, the first movie. What was he? Plays Spencer, I think.
so.
Spencer
I think that
Yeah.
he is, Spencer.
He's in the Spencer Mansion.
He's in that movie and
A hot minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's like my frame of reference for him. And I loved him in Altered Carbon because he hammed it up.
Oh, he was.
But in such a great way.
Chewing that
really,
scenery.
Like, it was great. I just love how aloof he was and how,
He's
it's like
been-
analyzing and...
It's like he's been plucked from like a stage theatre play and
Yes.
just placed in there. And he's like, I'm just going to carry on doing this theatre thing. And everyone else is like really broody and sci-fi. And he's like, I'm doing Shakespeare right now. How are you guys doing? It's so good.
No, I really enjoyed him. And like the woman who plays his wife, Miriam, she just was like, she towed that line between like being sexy and being manipulative as hell so well.
Yeah.
That I just like, those performances for me were great.
Yeah, she was great. Like, you knew from the outset that there's something weird with her. There's something odd about her. But like you
Not just in the stuff that she secretes.
Yeah, which is a whole different kind of weirdness
Yeah.
that I'm totally into.
But the other two female leads, so Quell, we both kind of had an issue with. Not in
Yeah.
terms of her, I mean, like in terms of her character, so she's a strong, badass bitch, you know, like the weakness of weapons, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really like the way that she just kind of kept popping up
Yeah.
I felt like that should have maybe been reserved for just like pure flashback sequences rather than her popping up every so often.
The problem with her was like, she's someone who they used to kind of humanize Takeshi in a lot of ways, and she's like, she connected with him, but like she never feels like a real human.
Yes.
She feels like she's learned Sun Tzu's Art of War off by heart, and that's the only thing she can talk like.
Yeah.
Like everything she says is some sort of like lesson for Kovacs.
You must learn the weakness
Just go,
of weapons.
The slave is a tool.
Your enemy is not the interrogator. Your enemy is despair.
I get that they were going for like, this is the kind of person who leads a revolution. But
no weakness kind
no
of thing.
weakness kind of thing, but like I failed to see how she inspired the loyalty of all these people just by speaking like in quotes all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't really get you.
Let him believe you are weak until the moment he discovers you are not.
I mean, the other character that maybe didn't gel for me as well, certainly towards the end of the series, was Rei, Takeshi's sister. I felt like she was maybe just the victim of some dodgy dialogue.
Yeah.
She kind of was very subtly introduced, I guess, throughout the first few episodes, like in those flashback sequences of them as kids, and then it was bam! Secret meth.
Guess who's Bazak?
Guess who's betrayed you all for not really that strong a reason.
Yeah, I think the reason, like it makes sense to start with. It's like, it feels like the reason you give to hide your more sinister reason. But like, she really stuck to that reason. I was like, I'm not buying it anymore. Like, it feels a bit weird. And even you can see Kovacs is like,
Really?
you've become a bit weird now. I don't really like you. You're annoying now.
And Poe,
Great character.
I loved him.
Yeah, he was great.
He was great. I think as well, the reason I liked him so much is that in a world where essentially a lot of things are new in terms of technology, he was like this cultural touchstone that kind of everyone studied in English at school and you kind of recognized, you know, obviously what the Raven was referring to.
Yeah.
You kind of understood him and the way he was acting and what he was clearly based on, and it just kind of felt nice, and also he was very funny.
Yeah, it was like a good character to return to. You knew that whenever they were back at the hotel, it was going to be a little lighter perhaps. It reminded me of, this is going to be a weird reference for some people, Angel. There's a character called Lorne who's like this alien who works at the green guy, and he can like, I think he could read your mind or tell your future through your when you sang. And he was a character that whenever they went to him, you knew that it would be a little lighter, it would be a little more funny, a little quirkier, and I got that same feeling from watching Poe, and it was like, yeah, whenever you see him, you're like, oh yeah, great, it's going to be a nice Poe few minutes.
Wait. It won't happen again. No!
That's this of your microwave miscreant.
Apologies.
Overall though, there are some episodes in the series that I thought were just...
Oh yeah.
Episode 4 was the one where I was
What
sat
an
watching it
episode.
with my housemate, and we would look at each other like every 5 minutes and go, I can't believe this is a TV episode that I'm watching.
Yeah.
Because the concept of it, tortured in VR, is so strong. The way that they did it as well, Quell actually in that episode, like that was a good use of her, but it kind of felt, obviously because it was in VR, it felt more like the fake Quell that I would like, rather than the Quell that just appears when Kovacs is walking down the street or something.
Yeah. That was the best, because it was you could see the impact she was having on him straight away.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm on board with her being here at this moment and the way that but that VR episode was outstanding. I watched it twice and I was...
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, I need to see this again. I just love the concept of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it has that arc of Takeshi figuring out, like being a detective and being an envoy, he figures out what he needs to do to break out of that. And when he does break out of it, it's like, I hate it when you don't get payoffs in TV shows. Like, I always put myself into that character's situation. I was like, if I came out of that, I would be murderously angry. And he comes out that, and he is murderously angry. And he just lets rip on the entire place. By the time he's done, it's just like, everyone's dead, blood everywhere, and he's just like done. He's like, I'm done for the day.
Right?
He comes out with Demi the Twins' head, and he's like,
Took you so long.
Thick face here wouldn't give me directions. I actually told him I'd let him live.
So I loved episode 4, and I think episode 7 might be quite divisive because I really liked it for the backstory that it gave to Kovacs' character, but I can see that otherwise it is quite a slowish episode.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like it should have come earlier.
Yeah.
But overall, I still really liked it.
I think that's the episode where they kind of really hard sell you on his sister and her kind of like her transformation and what she means, and also, you know, the history of the envoys and that kind of stuff, which was good. That stuff was good. It's just the way it kind of like they bring that forward in the remaining episodes. You're kind of like, oh, okay, I see how it fits in. And it fits in neatly, but it's just perhaps not as elegant as the rest of the series.
I mean, we touched on this briefly at the beginning, but we both really enjoyed how the world was, it felt complete.
Yeah.
As soon as you get dropped into it.
Yeah.
And the way that everything, it's like the world exists and you're a bystander in it, and the world doesn't need to feel the need to explain itself to you.
Yeah, it doesn't shine a light on you specifically, even though you're following this one main character. It's like this, the way I mean, obviously, it's a series that we had to create a glossary guide for. And that's kind of to its strength to me. It's what I loved about it. In a video game like Mass Effect again, that's the opportunity where you go to a terminal and read about the thing. In the first Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2, what we all loved was learning about this really intricate world. You know, you'd sit there for hours and read the data entries. And that's what kind of it evokes in me. Like it throws these concepts at you and then just moves on. And it leaves you with these questions about it. Yeah. Some of those questions it will return to later on and like re-explain it or provide a little more color enough for you to figure it out from context clues. Yeah. Others, it's just like, that's it, that's all you're getting. And I'm totally fine with that. That's kind of like not being able to understand everything in a world is what kind of keeps you thinking about it.
Yes.
And
yes.
that is what I loved about that world and how fast it moves, and it's just so well made. And this is obviously something that I have no previous experience with Altered Carbon, so there's probably people out there who are like, yeah, that's what we were talking about this entire time. Where have you been? Years. And to those people, I'm very sorry, I'd never listened to you. I'm here now, and I'm willing to learn. Please give me more. So I'm keen now to sit down and read the books, because I know that although they might not follow the same path as this story, which I'm glad, because I don't want to re-experience the same thing over and over again. I get the opportunity to learn all that stuff, learn more about Meths and all these other things. So it's impressed itself upon me. It's a thing that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. And I've not had something do that in quite a while, and I'm so excited about that.
And speaking of, like the terms and things that you come into contact with, the thing is like, if you imagine an episode of Black Mirror, for example, we've obviously done quite a lot on Black Mirror here on GameSpot Universe. Yep. But the core of every episode of Black Mirror is there's one piece of technology, and it usually investigates how it affects people, usually in quite a isolated storyline, usually with only a couple of main characters, and then maybe sometimes the broader, how it affects other people as well. But it's mostly very isolated stories. With Altered Carbon, the stack technology and the sleeves, it doesn't just imagine it from a regular person's point of view. It explores how it affects the super rich, how it affects just people struggling to get by day to day, the middle class even, and also the organized crime and how people can actually exploit that technology. It covers it, and the military as well. It covers it from so many angles.
Religion as well.
And religion, see what I mean? And it just kind of feels like so well thought out and so realized that I was so caught up and interested in it. I was like, God damn, that's so cool.
One of my favorite interactions is with a character, Aboud, who's like, he's a Muslim, which is really, really interesting to me, because I was like, oh, they're actually going to explore it from not just one faith angle, but multiple faith angles. And the way they approached that was really, really interesting. It made me not realize, but like take notice of the fact that this is a thing that they've thought about in detail, and the author of Altered Carbon has thought about in detail. So it's like, awesome. This is a cyberpunk thing I can really dive into and get excited about diving into even deeper and deeper.
It doesn't leave you with questions about how things work.
Yeah.
It explains it in such a way that you feel like you know it and you feel like you're familiar with it in a really impressive way.
Yeah, and anything it does kind of like skirt around, it does it for a reason. It does it, and it only helps to build a world around it, like I said earlier. You don't know a thing, but you want to know about a thing. And that's the mark of a great sci-fi world.
So taking all of this into account, do you think the ending had a good payoff?
Yeah, it was confusing in a way that I appreciated, and in a way that you can expect a series about swapping bodies and manipulating backups of people and minds and souls and all this other business and characters at odds with each other to pay off. But I really enjoyed it. Like, it took me a minute. I had to think about it and figure it out, and it kind of unravels steps of it right up until the very end, which is why, like, you have a moment where you have that Columbo moment.
Why have you insisted on all these people being here?
Because one of them killed you.
Oh.
And the rest are about to be witnesses.
You have that moment, and I love that you get that in like sci-fi universe, but then after that you get another moment which is similar to that. So there's like a double payoff, which I really appreciated. And just like that context, that having that moment where everyone's gathered around and you have this one character in the middle who knows everything about
in the accusing parlor.
Yeah, just walking around and being like, well, this person couldn't have done it because this, but what if? And then you're like, yes, tell him everything you've learned. And you're like, it's great to get behind him. And by the time you're done, you're like, that was like the central mystery paid off in a way that I really liked. And it didn't like slam the door shut either. So it was like, there's things like when you step away from the series, there's ramifications of what you just saw that are going to play out in your mind, which is why I'm like, I want to see what happens next now. I'm annoyed that
Season 2.
I'm so annoyed that I don't have a season 2 right now because I want to know where things go from here. So like, I've clearly, as you can tell from this video, like we're both attached to the series now, and we're excited to see what happens next. And I want to see more of what happens to Kovacs. I want to see what happens to the Bancrofts and the world around them, how that is impacted by what happened at the end. Oh, it's just so good. I loved it.
I mean, I think you can probably guess by now, but we both absolutely loved the show. I think like special shout outs for people and things that we might not have mentioned. The fight choreography.
Great work.
Incredible. The martial arts. Oh my God. The costume design, the production design, the set design.
Music.
Special effects. Music. Like, I'm genuinely pumped to watch it in 4K now. As well, for me, it sets like this incredible precedent that it feels like sci-fi's Game of Thrones moment. It's like comparing TV shows to Game of Thrones is like in games when you compare everything to Dark Souls. And yes,
this is the Dark Souls of TV sci-fi.
No, but it's like Game of Thrones really proved that if you invest time, money, and talent into a project and make it something really great, then it will be a success. And I really hope Altered Carbon is the same, because Sci-Fi, we had an incredible year with like Blade Runner. It just kind of feels like this injection into sci-fi that we have needed.
Yeah, it's the kind of, like you said, that Game of Thrones moment for them. Like everyone, there's people out there who love these things. Like they love fantasy and they love sci-fi, and they just know that someone else will really love it if they found the right thing. Like if you would stop watching all this rubbish crap and experience this here and there, and just watch this one thing or read this one thing, I think you'd really like it. That is what Altered Carbon is now. Like I know people who will dig sci-fi, but they just need that one thing to pull them in, and they need it to hit big, and they need it to be like in the cultural consciousness. And I think that for cyberpunk and for sci-fi, recent sci-fi, this stands to be one of the biggest. Everyone has Netflix, it's so accessible, and it's just, they're gonna market the crap out of it. I think they know it's good. So this is like the gateway into so much other stuff. It has been for me. I mean, we're both people who dabble in and out of sci-fi and cyberpunk especially. But this is a thing that we can now proudly take to people to be like easily, you wanna know what cyberpunk is about? Check this out. And then after there, the well is infinitely deeper.
Yeah.
And enjoy swimming in it.
So that's all we've got time for, because I think we've been rambling on for long enough about how much we love Altered Carbon. For more on the show, we have, as we said, the spoiler-free review, we have the glossary of terms. We're also going to have the differences between the show and the book, and I'm actually kind of glad we didn't get too deep into that today, because everything is different, but like in a good way, because the show has made itself its own, which I think is very impressive. So if you want to come find us on Twitter, I'm at Lucy James Games.
I'm at Tamor H.
And we'll see you next time.
Big up Ortega.
She's the best.
she's the best.